Hi everyone, good morning to all of you. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the opening of Star Media Group Work X Health. My name is June and I'm your host for this 2-day live virtual forum. And we hope you, your family and friends are staying well and innovative in this new normal. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you who are currently watching this program on WebEx, Starbiz Facebook, and the Star YouTube. And on behalf of Star Media Group, I'd like to also give a special mention to our sponsor and partners for joining us in making this program a reality. This 2-day virtual forum is sponsored by our gold partner, DrOnCall.com.my, joined by our strategic partner, Malaysian Mental Health Association, supported by Perkeso, produced by e-learning minds that provides online learning solutions, and live on Cisco WebEx. Now, moving on to what we are doing here in these 2 days and why. So, ladies and gentlemen, the main idea we had when we first curated this program was that we realized as working adults of this new decade, we spend all our waking hours hustling for the basic life necessities, and we ignore the most basic aspect of our wellness. It eventually affected our work productivity and our happiness in life. Workplace these days is more competitive than ever. Businesses and its human resources across the globe are badly impacted by the global pandemic. Our life expectations is increasingly pressured, especially in the growing uncertainty of global economy. And although the world is modernizing each day, but why is the tendency of us burning out is higher than ever? At Work X Health, we want to invite you to be part of the conversation on the pursuit of work-life optimization in the 21st century. According to World Health Organization, health is not merely the absence of disease or infirmity, but a positive state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. We are very honored and privileged with the kind support given by 15 wellness and health gurus who will be sharing with us the causes, implications, and how to tackle modern-day health issues, while learning to embrace and adopt the accessibility to health innovations. So, how is the program going to work? You can see on your screen the program rundown of these 3 sessions. Work X Health Forum is split into 3 sessions of about 2 hours each and will run for 2 days. We will cover some of the pressing topics surrounding physical, lifestyle, social, mental, and emotional wellness. There are also 2 very exciting panel discussions. One is happening towards the end of today's session, so make sure you guys stay tuned till the end, where we have a panel of HR, people and culture leaders to share their insights on employee wellness initiatives. The other panel discussion is the last session of the forums program, where a panel of industry practitioners will discuss the benefits and limitations of online and offline doctors. To learn more about the forum program and profile of our speakers, you may scan the QR code on top right of your screen, or you can visit bit.ly/WXHagenda. I repeat, bit.ly/WXHagenda. Alright guys, a few quick housekeeping matters before we kick off. As everyone dials into this session through different internet bandwidth and devices, you may or may not experience minor technical glitch, so please be patient if there's any. For WebEx participants, your microphone and video cam are turned off by default, but you still can chat with us, the events crew, directly if you need any assistance, or email to us at events@thestar.com.my. If you have any questions for our speakers, please feel free to post it in the chat box. So, lastly and more importantly, please remember to engage, learn, and enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. He is Dr. Azlan Darus. Dr. Azlan Darus is currently attached with the Social Security Organization of Malaysia, or SOCSO, as the head of Prevention, Medical and Rehab Division. He oversees the occupational safety and health programs involving more than 6 million SOCSO contributors that might involve you and me. And he manages the medical and rehab programs for employers and employees registered with SOCSO. He is also currently the Vice Chairperson for the Technical Commission on Insurance Against Occupational Injury and Occupational Diseases of the International Social Security Association. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Azlan Darus.
Thank you, Jun, for that very kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen who are with us through this online forum, thank you again for spending your morning this morning to be listening to this forum. Thank you for the STAR for inviting me to be talking into this forum on a very interesting topic for me on employees' health in the 21st century. Now, ladies and gentlemen, throughout the past 4 months, we've been talking a lot about COVID-19. In fact, most of the activities of health and also safety in the organizations are about concerning how do we manage COVID-19 in the organization. Therefore, it's quite refreshing actually to have an event such as today, where we are going to talk a little bit something which has already been discussed a lot before we had the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are going to continue to again discuss because this is not going to go away. Now, my name is Azlan. I am a specialist in occupational health. Most of the time in my profession, I talk about occupational disease. And these are diseases which are brought about by your activities at work. And this has already been discussed for a long time, ladies and gentlemen. This was in the 18th century even. We have already discussed and recognized that work can cause diseases. What sort of diseases that work is causing? Many. So in the beginning, we think about exposure to chemicals at the workplace. We thought about the exposure to dust. What happened to the lungs, for example. We thought about exposure to bacteria and other organisms at the workplace that causes disease to a person who is doing their job. And for a long time, this had been the discussion which had been of concern to medical practitioners, especially in terms of managing diseases and health and well-being of workers in the workplace. Even later on, in the 1990s, when the country moves from agriculture to industrialization, we still think a lot about diseases that can be caused by working. So, for example, we look into the diseases that is caused by, again, when we move into industrialization, we look into diseases that are caused by exposure to chemicals, for example. When we are going into agriculture, industrial, then we also look into, again, diseases that are caused by this workplace to the workers. Now, this is all very interesting, but things move. Now, just now when Jun introduced the forum, he spoke about you're going to have a number of experts, gurus in health and wellness, well, which I am not. But I'm going to try to show you today what we are seeing in social security about what is happening to the workers in our country. And perhaps with that, we can then share what are we doing, and of course, we also wanted to know what can you do to curb the diseases that are now affecting workers in the 21st century. Just about 10 years ago, then we started to think about the posture issue. We think about how workers or how humans have developed from being an upright position working in industry and agriculture, and then towards the end we work in a different posture working with computers and visual display units. And a lot of issue comes with back pain, a lot of issue comes with ergonomic issues, carpal tunnel syndrome, and things like that. And there's a lot of discussion on this as well for the past decade on how do we help workers when we move from one type of job or a type of posture of job into a new type of posture of job. But that is not what is happening now. We are seeing a different trend of diseases that are affecting our workers in the country. We are seeing that actually our workers, not only that the work has changed, but the profile of work has also changed. Now this is what I'm showing here. This is something from a few years ago, and this was a shocking revelation by the staff on what was found in our health screening program, of which workers 40 years old and above went through a health screening, and this was what we found, that many of them are unfit while they are at the office. Many of them have got non-communicable diseases and risk factors for non-communicable diseases while they are working, and these numbers are shocking. Shocking enough that, ladies and gentlemen, in Social Security, we are looking at the same trend. Now, this graph here shows the number of people applying for invalidity or survivor's benefit due to non-communicable disease from 2009 until 2018. What does it mean? This graph here shows that the number of people who are unable to work anymore while they are still in the working age because of non-communicable diseases. The causes varies. Most of them are diseases such as stroke, heart failure, kidney diseases, and cancer. In year 2018, the number had doubled from 10,000 in 2009 to 22,000 in 2018. Twice the number of people in the country has lost their job or unable to work because of these non-communicable diseases. In 2019, we reached 24,000. In fact, if we look at this in a daily basis, and it's even more shocking or a more saddening figure, because every day we lose around 46 persons who are unable to work anymore because of non-communicable diseases. This number is bigger than the number of people who are unable to work or died because of accidents. This number is bigger than people who are unable to work or died because of commuting or workplace injury. This number is definitely bigger than the number of people who died because of COVID-19 recently. So this is an issue, ladies and gentlemen. If we think that this is something that is normal for everybody, it is not, because 46 persons, 46 employees, Malaysian employees in the country every day are unable to continue their work or died because of non-communicable disease. But this is not surprising. This is what we found after we screened almost 600,000 workers in the country for NCDs. If you look around you, and if you're above 40, 72% of the people, of the workers that comes to work with you, are actually either overweight or obese. 1 in 4 of your colleagues who are above 40 years old has hypertension. 9% of them has got diabetes. 62% has got a high cholesterol. So if we combine all this, we can see that how bad or how hard is it going to be for these persons as they go along and develop more risk and more diseases and organ failures with all the disease that we have in our employee population. And of course, we are also shocked because almost 69% have not had a health screening before to check for all these diseases, for all the diseases that I just mentioned earlier. So not only that our people, our employee in the country, is either hypertensive, diabetes, has got high cholesterol, but most of them did not have any health screening to check these conditions. So they don't know, and they don't, unfortunately, unable to do what are needed to be done to control their risk factors. This is what we are seeing in the country at the moment, and this is based on one of the largest health screening data in the country. I'll give you another number. In the year 2019, ladies and gentlemen, the number of recipients of SOCSO hemodialysis assistance, so the number of recipients of SOCSO hemodialysis assistance are workers who are now in the working age, has end up with end-stage renal failure and requiring dialysis. We are now covering for almost 18,000 people, 18,000 workers in the country with end-stage renal failure. And this cost the country, or cost the Social Security Fund, about 287 million ringgit a year. Let's not look at the money, let's look at the number, the sheer number of people who, coming from the previous slide that I showed you, now end up with end-stage renal failure. And I've not spoken about other diseases, but this is a state of emergency. This is a state where we need to look into how can we improve the health of the country, and of course we need to look at how can we improve the health of the workers in the country. Because if we look into the statement or the assumption that if workers are the engine of the country, and that means our engine are not doing very well. As a culmination, as a combination of all those risk factors, 4% of our workers we found are actually at high risk of developing cardiac diseases in 10 years. 19% are at moderate risk, 76% are still at risk of cardiac disease over the next 10 years. And these are just cardiac disease. I've already shown you the hemodialysis, end-stage renal failure, and I've also shown you that the number of non-communicable diseases causing invalidity and death are actually quite high. The next slide shows the possibility or the probability of dying due to non-communicable diseases between the age of 35 to 70 years old. We need to look at this seriously because Malaysia doesn't sit very well. We are higher than Singapore, we are higher than Thailand, Japan of course, UK and US. Only Indonesia is slightly higher than us. 19.6% of all of us here are probably going to die from non-communicable disease between the age of 35 to 70 years old. And of course, this costs the country. This is definitely going to cost the country. And this is another study made in Australia, looking at the cause of NCD, non-communicable diseases, death, absenteeism, and presenteeism that is due to the diseases in the employee population. And in Malaysia, it's going to increase. By 2020, they're expected to be costing us $22.5 billion. In the next 5 years, it's going to be increased for another $8 billion, becoming $30.4 billion. And if there's nothing to be done, it's just going to increase by year. And in terms of the share of the GDP, at the moment, it is estimated Malaysia, we are spending about 4.9% of our GDP lost from non-communicable diseases, death, absenteeism, and presenteeism. So we are actually quite high, and we are spending money, or money are being wasted because of these diseases. So it comes to the question whether our work environment, because of all this, are we creating a work environment that is promoting well-being or promoting ill-being? Is the workplace promoting our workers to be healthy, or is the workplace promoting or not promoting, or letting it be status quo, that our workplace are not promoting our workers to be healthy or healthier? We wanted to promote this, and we wanted to say, look, ladies and gentlemen, in the 21st century, in the year 2000 and above, now we are already 2020, workplaces should be also a place that promotes well-being to the workers. The workplace is an important setting because it sets the employees how they live and how they react to the risk in their lives. Employees spend most of their waking hours, almost 50%, at the workplace. Some spend even more than that. Employees has got their friends and their colleagues, which are support system, social support system, readily available at the workplace. We discuss a lot of things with our colleagues. We discuss the Premier League. We discuss the movies. We discuss our social life. We discuss our family. And why not? The workplace is the best place for us to support each other into becoming healthier. And of course, if workplaces are healthy, then employees gain encouragement and motivation from the management of their organizations. And this is actually coming from our experience with workplace health promotion initiatives, where most workplaces that has got a good health promotion activities are actually started from the management of their organizations. And of course, as employers, you will gain, because a healthy workforce will increase productivity, have better morale, reduce costs of medical, reduce costs of absenteeism, etc., etc. So the workplace is the most ideal time, is most ideal setting at the moment in the 21st century to promote healthy lifestyle among its employees. And of course, because if workplace is unhealthy, and this one is another business case, and we actually can see there are 2 or 3 times more, for example, mental health problem, there are 3 times more back pain, higher risk of heart problems, substance abuse, injuries, and even conflicts. So workplace health program is required. Workplace health program is the way that you want to go. You want to look into employees' work, you want to look at employees' life and wellness at the moment. And then we thought, okay, we have been discussing this for a long time. We need to have something that will encourage more effort, that will encourage more programs into the workplace health promotion, into getting employees to be more healthier and better well-being. So in the country and also in around the world, we had introduced Vision Zero campaign for safety, health, and well-being of employees as some sort of catalyst so that we can get this program going. And this is actually something that we have introduced. The International Social Security Association as well as the ILO had introduced this since 2017. In Malaysia, we launched this in 2019, just last year, in July, and we have now, Malaysia have joined the global initiative towards promoting safety, towards promoting health, and also well-being of the employees in the country. There are many challenges that we see are happening at the moment with the workforce in the country. Our workers are aging, and this is also not as old as this at the moment, but our aging workforce are at risk as I've shown you earlier, the statistics on the health status of employees in the country that I've shown are all for workers above the age of 40 years old, and as time goes by, this same group of workers are going to be still with us, working with all those risk factors. We are having issues with, we are having challenges with globalization. Many more workers are coming in, and there are many more industries are opening up all over the world. There's new health risks, of course. We talk about NCDs, but then again, we also been hampered with the pandemic recently. So these are global challenges. There are new ways that we need to think about. And of course, there's also digital economy, and people has already mentioned there are there's a lot more activities done under the digital platform that increases sedentary lifestyle, that increases the stress, that increases the burnout level as well. So these are challenges for workers' health that we needed to look into, and therefore we looked into a strategy to go, how do we tackle this? And one of it is we look into the Vision Zero philosophy, where we wanted to change the generation, where we wanted workplaces to adopt measures so that we can change the new generation of workers, so that we do not accept any accident, we do not accept any harm, or we do not accept diseases when it occurs because of the workplaces. We wanted to change that. Look, coming to work and being unhealthy is not something that is acceptable. I'm showing you this slide because the Challenger shuttle disaster was attributed to the O-rings of the rocket booster. They found it to be defective many times, but was considered as a risk that is acceptable, and it ends up with the explosion in the sky. It is the same thing. We should not accept that we go to work, work will cause us to become unhealthy. We should not accept that we come to work, we can be mentally tired, we can be burnt out because of work. We should not accept that when we come to work, we are exposed to the dangers to our safety. So with that initiation for the program of Vision Zero, we shall be able to look into how to gain the safety, health, and well-being at the workers, starting at the workplace. Ladies and gentlemen, these numbers are a bit old. Even now, at the moment, there are already more than 280 companies in Malaysia which are already members of the Vision Zero initiative. In the whole world, we have already reached almost 7,000 members, business members for the Vision Zero initiative. So join us, go to the SOXO website, or can just click on Vision Zero Malaysia, and you can help together with us to create a generational change so that we can start to train our workers, we can start to have workplaces that actually will promote safety, health, and well-being of the workers. What do we do? There are many things that can be done under this banner. There are rules, or there are suggestions of what to be done so that we can have our workplaces that promotes health and promotes well-being. I've shown you earlier that the state of health for employees have changed from the previous issue where we looked into the chemical exposure, where we looked into accidents at the workplace. Now we are looking at non-communicable diseases. We are looking at cardiovascular risk factors. We are looking at mental health issues. These issues are now something which is important and giving an impact to the country, and I am sure it is also giving an impact to the businesses. Health issues is now at the same level as safety issues, and it is causing loss to the business, to the worker, and to the family of the workers. I also wanted to show again that workplace is part of a society. Therefore, if we improve the workplace, we improve the society. If work is the cause of disease, then work can also improve this health conditions of people of the society. So we must take action now. I have to say, usually people say it is not too late, but I'm going to say we are already late, because we are already seeing the impact of this of these non-communicable diseases to the workers in the country. So whatever channel we have, use it so that we can start to gain or start to improve our workplaces. All right, so that should be my last slide. Of course, open to any questions, June.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Azlan, for the sharing just now. So it was a very interesting sharing, and I love the part where Dr. Azlan actually mentioned where workplace is the most important place to be healthy. Most of us would think that, oh, I want to go home quickly because that's the place I can heal. But actually, according to Dr. Azlan, workplace is also a place where we can heal ourselves and never come to work if it harms you. Remember that, okay? So we have a few questions from our audience. So the first one, losing eyesight as an after effect of a surgery, partly due to work, is it considered as non-communicable disease? It's from Lily Tan, and she asked, can he or she claim SOCSO or EIS? So what do you think, doctor?
All right, this is a usual question whenever I give any talk about anything. Then people will ask about whether this can be claimed for SOCSO or not. Right, losing eyesight after an after effect of a surgery, partly due to work. I need to know actually whether the surgery is due to an injury or a disease that is due to work. And if it's due, the surgery itself is already of a disease that is due to work, then what happened after the surgery, then will be something that is covered under our schemes. But the first thing that we need to know is whether the initial cause of it is a workplace incident or an occupational disease. So there's not much information here, but I can tell you that.
Okay, thank you so much, doctor, for the answer just now. And Lily, I hope you learned from that. And also, I can relate to the question. So the next question, why does Australia have lower rate as compared to others? What causes the difference, by Carson?
Right. I'm assuming that you are talking about the lower rate of non-communicable diseases or the cause of death due to NCDs from NCDs. What causes the difference? Okay. There are many changes in different society that we see, or differences in the society that we see that causes the different rates of cardiovascular risk factors. For example, in Malaysia, I can tell you that we probably has accelerated our economy fast enough that that our population are getting used to the new found of wealth over the last two decades, for example. Therefore, we are eating more, we are exercising less, we have more money or more better finance to get a better life, but not at the same time improves in our physical activities, and not at the same time improves in our management of health. I think Australia is a little bit further in terms of managing the finance or their lives, their physical activities, and also their ability to buy things, new things, and to get better activities. So I think with that, that's why Australia and actually a few other developed countries is a little bit more advanced compared to that in that aspect. But also, we must also remember that when I said we need a generational change, is that we are also seeing our young ones who are now taking better care of their health compared to the middle ages. So I think we are getting there, but we need to enforce more knowledge. We need to give them more empowerment to say, look, you take care of your health, and also you take care of your life and finance activities. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Azlan. So yeah, I like the point where he actually mentioned it start with us, the generational change. So we actually have more questions. Keep it coming. So the next question is from William. He asks, while I agree with promoting good healthy tips in a working environment, do you think people will share their health with the company? What do you think, Doctor?
Okay, what I wanted to mention, I think, and people actually, they don't share their health with the company, but they share their health with the colleagues in the company. That is very important. Like I said earlier, and June also mentioned it very well, that we spend most of our times actually at the workplace. We spend most of our communications at the workplace. We share a lot. We share a lot of things at the workplace with our colleagues, and that is most important. Therefore, when we have a workplace that promotes healthy lifestyle, when we have a workplace management and also programs that promotes how to live healthily, then the workplace becomes an ideal place for people to work or to practice healthy lifestyle. I give you a very simple example. Whenever we go to the cafe with our colleagues at lunchtime, and if you put a plate full of rice and all the dishes for your lunch, if we are used to talk about health, your friend might just simply say, and without even touching on anything sensitive, he's just gonna say, "Hey, look, that's probably a bit too much, guy." See, these are the things that promotes our healthy lifestyle, because we are used, and if you are used to talk about health and good tips at the workplace, then actually we, among our colleagues, even with our managers, supervisors, we can give that small tips on healthcare while at the workplace. I give you another one. If somebody has not joined their office colleagues on a badminton game in the afternoon or futsal game in the afternoon, people can just simply, "Hey, come, let's join. You have not joined for a long time." So these are things that are promoting healthy lifestyle at the workplace that we need to promote more. Therefore, the workplaces, the management, if we can push, give nudges so that we can get all this happening, then it's much better. And we can have a company that promotes healthy lifestyle. Supervisors can come along and say, "Hey, look, you've been on the computer for so long, just get up and stretch." You know, of course, there are many companies with automated systems nowadays, but imagine if the supervisor come along and say, "Hey, get up and stretch." See, so these are the things that we wanted people or companies to be promoting at the workplace, because workplace is the best place to do this.
Okay, so if you are in your workplace now, don't forget to stretch, right? Like what Dr. Azlan mentioned just now. So we still have a lot of questions. Thank you so much for the question, and we're going to take two due to time constraints. So the next question is from Melinda. If a person is diagnosed with cancer, can the worker who is after age of 60, the retirement age, claim from PKSO? If yes, how can this be done?
Okay, this is an operations question. If a person is diagnosed with cancer, first of all, diagnosis of cancer alone does not give you compensation. We need to look at whether the cancer causes an invalidity or what are the sequelae of the cancer. That's number one. Number two, the cancer has to be diagnosed before the age of 60 years old before the claim can be made. The claim can be made after 60, but the cancer must be diagnosed before the age of 60 years old. If the cancer was diagnosed after 60, then the eligibility criteria has already lapsed.
All right, I hope that answers Melinda. And this is our last question. Okay. From RJ. Okay. She's asking, when we were in school, we were often encouraged to excel in academics and extracurricular activities. This practice should continue in workplace as well. Your comment on this, Doctor?
I think, yeah, that's fantastic. When we were in school, we were encouraged to be excellent in academics, and also we are encouraged to do extracurricular activities. And then sometime it was lost. We asked to only be excellent in academics, and now it comes back again. It is academic and extracurricular activities. This practice should continue at work, definitely. definitely. Except that at the workplace, the the emphasis on work productivity is um, very well systematically planned. At the end of the year, you are going to be evaluated of your productivity. At the end of the year, you are evaluated how good you have been working for the company, etc., etc. It is systematically done, programmed very well. But what is not there, and this is compared to the school, is that your extracurricular activities, the physical activities, the mental health activities, these are not planned as part of what is evaluated, or this is not planned well as part of the programs at work. Compare that to the school, where your excellence or your activity in extracurriculum is actually being evaluated. At the workplace, this is not very well done. Some companies may have, but it is a small portion of what is the total evaluation. But imagine if we have a practice at the workplace where, for example, if physical activities and your participation in these programs, healthy activities, are part of the requirement of work. That would be interesting, isn't it? Or if you can have participation, for example, as part of training, you not only required to get training in terms of how to do your work, but part of the training must also include mental health or mind activities. For example, going to the training for mental health activities, mental health programs, or even in a time when many of workers are having problem with financial planning. Programs that includes financial planning is also something that is evaluated into the work requirement. Then you will have that balance, just like in school, where academics and extracurricular activities are being promoted. In the workplace, the productivity, the job requirement is promoted, but also on the workplaces, on the health activities are also required. This is what's happening in my organization, where we actually do all that as part of the end of year evaluation.
Okay, I know I mentioned just now this is the last question, but we have one more question from the audience. So it's from Lo. As the pace is getting faster with wide connectivity and highly competitive market, how can we control the endless demand of urgent response from employers even after office hours? This add to work stress.
All right.
To you.
Yeah, this is something that is really coming through with the with the technology that we have now, and we not only. I can still remember last time when we have only emails, that people are having to answer emails after work, and then we introduced that emails should only be answered the next morning if they come after work. And then now we have social media, so job instruction or response not only come from email, but also comes in your WhatsApp and in your Telegram and whatnot. So this is a new challenge. This is a new challenge for workplaces, for employees in the 21st century. So how do we manage this? How can we control this? It again, if we tackle this as a workplace issue, then the management and the workers, when you have the workplace safety and health issues being discussed, need to look at this as an organization. So it may be one-to-one personal intervention might work, but as a whole, the organization must understand or must put into rules of the organization how do you manage this risk, how do you manage the engagement of work when people need to distress themselves after work. So it's not going to work on a personal level. I don't think it's going to work very well, but it has to be taken into a management issue that if it's happening too much in a certain workplaces.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor, for the Q&A session just now. And yeah, the main key takeaway of it is like, it's not on the personal level. The employers always have to check on their employees to check on their health and keep on asking them if they're okay or not. So, Doctor, I think we have reached at our end of the session. Do you have any final words for the audience today?
Right. Thank you again, the star. Thank you, everyone. I hope everybody will take care of themselves. COVID-19 is at the tail end, but we are still having to be vigilant at all times so that we continue to be healthy for us, ourselves, and our families. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Azlan, for the sharing just now. So guys, stay tuned. We're gonna be right back with our next session. See you.
Done.
Thank you again. Thank you once again, Dr. Azlan. It is a great honor to have you here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker will bring us back to the basic importance. He will share with us why sleep is important to improve our daily life and health. Dr. Cody Singh is now the consultant ENT and medical director of Prince Court Medical Centre since 2007. He has been an active member in the Malaysian Medical Association since 1996. He has also conducted meetings and presented in all the ASEAN countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present to you Dr. Cody Singh.
Good morning and welcome to this series of talks that have been conducted by STAR. I would like to thank them for inviting me here today. My first question to you is, did you sleep well last night? Do you feel that you had a good quality sleep last night? Do you know what good quality sleep is? This is a question that sometimes we ask our patients, and we do sometimes ask ourselves, that did I sleep well last night? I'm going to go through with you certain aspects of sleep. There's certain things that are pretty new to us, new concepts that are new to us, which I would like to share with you today. Why sleep is important there are many aspects of sleep that we take it for granted. We don't understand that not having a good sleep can relate to a lot of things in your life, in your daily life. One of the reasons that we have seen patients have got other issues when they perform, and even their longevity has been affected because sleep has never been something that helped them during their lifetime. From the time they were babies up to at the ripe age of 80s or 90s, they never had good sleep. And we have seen statistically that when you have good sleep, you reduce your diabetic risk, your emotion and social interaction gets better, poor sleep increases body weight, there is lesser calorie intake if you sleep well, better immune function, improved concentration and productivity when you're at work, it lowers risk of heart disease and stroke, and if you are into athletics, your performance gets better, lesser depression, and reduces inflammation. These are the facts that the medical world have been talking about for time immemorial, and many times we don't understand why such kind of conditions that we have, it is actually related to sleep, and we don't really focus the importance of sleep. And I think we need to educate ourselves, not just the doctors and even patients, even you. We need to know that these are the things that you need to focus on and go back and look at the sleep pattern and the way you sleep. Now, which are the body parts that involve in breathing, particularly in sleep? Now, the most important structure that we have is the nose. The nose has got only one role. Besides putting a specs on, the other main role is to breathe. Nothing else. You don't eat through your nose, you don't drink through your nose, but you only breathe through your nose. Do we really use our nose for breathing? Think about it. We never realize at times that we are always using our mouth to compensate the nose. Then we have the brain. The brain decides unconsciously whether to use your nose or your mouth. The lungs are involved in breathing. It depends a lot on the air that gets from the nose. If you breathe through your nose, you have more oxygen. If you breathe through your mouth, you have lesser oxygen. And today we are also looking at your dental structure, because the dental structure has got a lot of relationship to the size of the nose that you have. Why I say nasal breathing is important? Because we must use our nose exclusively for breathing and not your mouth. We are meant to be nasal breathers. If you look at babies, babies will breathe through their nose while getting fed. Can you do that? You can't do that. But by nature, we have been trained to do that. The nose is an important structure. Number one, it is natural for breathing. Number two, it acts as a good filter. There's no other better filter than your nose. There's no filterization that occurs if you breathe through your mouth. It humidifies your air. The lungs needs a particular humidification. It is better than the humidifiers that you buy in town. It is one of the best humidification that the nature has provided. It sterilizes your air to some extent. And most importantly, there are a lot of immune defense within your nose. So now you would understand that nasal breathing is so important. And without nasal breathing, you find that you're going to lose out in all these 5 aspects that you have, that the nature has given us for the nose. So why do we not breathe through our nose, particularly when we sleep at night? Now, there are many reasons why we don't breathe through our nose. Some of the reasons are gender. We find in studies have shown males tend to breathe more from their mouth. We also have females breathing from their mouth too. Age related, the older you get, you find there is lesser nasal breathing. There are studies to show race. We don't have studies in Malaysia to show that. Anatomical deformities, not every individual is the same. If you look at your colleague's face and your face, you'll find that there will be difference. And there is a lot of compromised physiological function whereby that causes us to breathe from from our mouth. I have patients who have told me that they have never experienced breathing from the nose and they think that is all right. Posture. You may not realize on your own, but if you look at someone moving with the head moving first before the body, that's what we call the forward head posture. These patients potentially do not breathe from their nose. They have accustomed their posture in order to get the best amount of air through their mouth. Nasal congestion, like allergic rhinitis, sinusitis, are one of the reasons why we don't breathe through our nose. Body weight, if you're obese and your BMI is higher than usual, then you're not going to be breathing comfortably from your nose, you're going to breathe from your mouth. And if you have any endocrine or metabolic syndrome, severe diabetes, obesity, and any other endocrine problems, then you may have difficulty breathing from the nose. It could be neurological. Smokers will have persistent nasal obstruction, which doesn't allow you to breathe from the nose, and alcohol intake, which is excessive. And there are certain medications will also cause difficulties. Now, it is important in this generation that we need to address this issue of nasal breathing in terms of snoring and sleep apnea. You need to collaborate with the ENT surgeon and your dental doctor. Now, if you look at this diagram, our skull is uniquely placed such a way where the nose is actually on the side of, if you look at your skull, the nose is actually placed right above your mouth. And if you have a narrow mouth, that will clearly give you a very small nasal passageway. And if you look at the pictures onto your right-hand side, the placement of the jaw has got a tremendous influence on your airway. And those who have protruded jaw, you will find that if your jaw is behind your upper incisors, you find that you'll have a narrow space to breathe. So this shows clearly that there are a lot of dental conditions that causes you not to breathe well from your nose, and neither you will be breathing well from your mouth because of the structure, the way our nasal cavity is and our oral cavity. Why this is important? How you breathe, it determines your face growth, how your body functions. Now, if you go back into history, during the hunters and the gatherers, and you look at the current skull structure, it is very obvious that during prehistoric times, we had better straight teeth, we have stronger muscles in our mouth. And if you look carefully in these two pictures, on the right-hand side, during the industrial era, which is right up to now, you have narrow mouths and the teeth are actually crowded. Most of our patients, when you look into their mouth, the teeth will be crowded, and many a times they go for braces, they do a lot of dental work to give them space to breathe. But that clearly shows that when you have crowding of your teeth in your mouth, your nasal space is actually narrow. As I mentioned to you earlier, the nose sits just above the hard palate, and if the hard palate is narrow, then you're going to have a narrow nasal cavity, hence you're not going to breathe well from your nose. So this is the structure that we have seen, and over 250 years, we have noticed that our skulls have become in a very dangerous manner and pretty troubling as far as breathing is concerned. Science has shown to us crooked teeth, overbites, narrow jaws, crimpled nasal airways are modern phenomena. So we have seen that prehistoric people actually breathe better than what we are breathing right now. So we have evolved. If you look at this picture, you could see the arrows that very clearly show the space that you have on the hunters and the modern industrial era. There is significant narrowing, and if you look at your right side picture, the teeth are pretty much crowded, they don't have space to grow, whereas on the left hand side, the teeth structures are fantastic. So probably there were no dentists that were required in the prehistoric times because people at that point of time had fantastic teeth, fantastic nasal airway, and we have lost it now. So the main issue now is not just the nasal structure, it's also the dental structure that you need to expand. There's technology today to expand the upper jaw in order to give you a better space in your nose so that you breathe better. So this is very clear. It has been proven. A lot of studies have been shown how dental structure has got influence to your nasal breathing. So what would be the steps in treating sleep obstruction breathing? First thing is you should consult an ENT surgeon, and the ENT surgeon will have to investigate to see exactly where your problems are. Is it an infection? Is there allergic rhinitis? Are there structures within your nose that obstructs airway? And the ENT surgeons today are also trained to have a quick look in your mouth. They may not be able to treat the structures in your mouth, but then they will come up with a treatment plan, exactly what that needs to be done after investigating. And very often there is cross-referral to the dentist and other specialists to treat your sleep obstruction problem. And the most important would be to review your outcomes after the consultation of these two specialties. This is how sleep obstruction is being treated these days. It's not widely done, but the thinking and the paradigm thinking is now on, that we need to conduct such kind of steps in order to give you a good quality sleep at the end of the day. What does an ENT doctor would do? We use an endoscope. It's a small little camera that goes into your nose. It's pretty painless. It looks into your nose, as I mentioned to you just now. We look into your throat to make sure the structures in your throat, like your tonsils and other structures within your throat, doesn't obstruct your airway. You could be subjected to a sleep study. Polysomnography is a study that's done in the hospital, and sometimes maybe a home study in the comfort of your home to look at the pattern of your sleep and what kind of oxygenation that you get when you sleep at night. Sleep study may not be the only diagnostic tool to answer all the questions when you have difficulty in sleeping. We also resort to radiology studies such as CT scans or MRI to further understand your airway within your nasal cavity and also your dental formation in order to have a better idea how your breathing is going to be like and how the obstruction involves in your day-to-day breathing. And this is what we do in an ENT setup, and then we will go into treatment. Now, what kind of treatment we could have? Now, the first step is medication. Medication may not be the only complete solution to sleep breathing. We have to treat your allergies, and you have sinusitis. The sinusitis need to be treated because that will give you natural airway through your nose, but that alone will not give you full recovery of breathing through your nose. There are times you need to have surgery, and some surgeries would help you to give you space to breathe through your nose. There will be obstructed structures within your nose, which may not be giving you the maximum airflow to your lungs. So there could be nasal surgeries, there could be sometimes some palatal surgeries, and we do some tongue-based surgeries whereby airway may not flow well after leaving your nose. So these are a few surgeries that could be customed for different types of patients. It is not one surgery that would work for all. Having said that, surgeries alone in the nose may not be, again, a total solution for it. You need to probably see a dentist after seeing an ENT surgeon who have completed his examination and his investigation on the nose, and the dentist will look at other parameters such as the level and the height of the palate, the hard palate, whether the palate is too high, and the width of the arch of your upper jaw. And there are devices today which can expand that space so that you have a little bit more extended base for your nose to actually sit on. So such kind of treatments we normally start at this stage when children are still very young. We don't wait for children to start snoring. If you have a child who's sleepy, poor school performance, and if you watch them from far, they often have their mouth slightly open. You should remember that these patients, these children need to be treated early. You don't wait for them to become adults and then you get into therapy, which becomes even more challenging. You will find that children's school performance will increase, they'll get better if these steps are taken early. The final course of treatment would be CPAP, and CPAP would be a machine that basically pumps air in a forceful manner into your lung. Now, we don't say CPAP again would be the total solution. Many a times when patients snore or there's sleep apnea, there would be recommendations made to the patient to be on CPAP. CPAP may be gold standard for sleep apnea, but it may not be a total solution for conditions whereby you're not breathing well from the nose. We can do a lot to the patients without using CPAP if there is a collaborative effort between the ENT and the dental surgeons to give you a total airway to breathe through the nose. This is a new paradigm. All over the world, a lot of doctors are talking about this today. And in Malaysia, we have series of talks that we have had amongst the ENTs and the dental surgeons. There are some dental surgeons and also many ENT surgeons are aware of this condition to treat it holistically. Now, what are the final outcomes we look when you have nasal obstruction, you're unable to breathe through your nose, you snore, you have sleep apnea? First, we want it to be socially accepted. Sometimes we send patients back with CPAP, and CPAP probably may not be socially accepted. Imagine having a machine at night, sleeping, and it is rather uncomfortable to the people who sleep with you and also when you travel. And socially, you should be happy in the sense that you have better breathing through your nose and you do not have any difficulty in mingling with people. And also when you go for trips, your snoring and your nasal breathing, your snoring is less and your nasal breathing is more than breathing through your mouth. The second outcome we look is quality of life. If this condition is treated well, you find your quality of life is better. You don't realize until you get yourself treated, because you may assume that your quality of life is good at this point of time. But if you start breathing from your nose and stop snoring and you have no sleep apnea anymore, you find that your quality of life gets better. That will lead to point number C, productivity. You find that you're more productive. We have seen patients have gone through treatment and they seem to be more productive. They find themselves being more productive, more alert, because they have attained good sleep quality at night. And D, the most important thing that we are worried is having to breathe through your nose well, without snoring, without having sleep apnea. You're going to avoid a lot of non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, which later could lead to heart problems and also to respiratory issues, and of course eventually kidney problems. You may have inherited a non-communicable disease, but if you start breathing from your nose well and this is treated well, you'll find that there is a lower incidence of such kind of conditions in the community that have gone through this treatment. So we are trying to look at three main take-home messages. Number one, your sleep quantity should be at least 7 to 8 hours, but the 7 to 8 hours should have good quality. Just logging in 7 to 8 hours would not be enough, but you need to have quality sleep, breathing through your nose and not breathing through your mouth. That's the most important thing. And of course, that goes to the second point. We have to work towards nasal breathing. You check yourself and you see that whether are you actually breathing from your nose or are you breathing from your mouth, even in your day-to-day activity. Try climbing a staircase, shutting your mouth and only trying to breathe from your nose. See whether you can make the staircase, one flight of staircase comfortably just by breathing through the nose. If you can't, that means you are not a nasal breather. And number 3, sleep hygiene. You should sleep at a consistent time. I know we are living in an urbanized area. Sleep is always a privilege. You need to sleep at the right time, get up at the right time, comfortable, with light meals. We like to eat, but don't do too much of eating before you sleep at night, and do your exercises early. And all this together will actually form a good quality of life, and your longevity will actually increase. Message of the day is start breathing from your nose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for the sharing just now. Wow, I've never realized all this time we might be using our mouth instead of our nose to breathe. So maybe after this, you guys can try to check whether you guys breathing using your nose or your mouth. Not now, okay? Relax. Okay, so we have a question from the audience. The first one from William. So he's asking, is teeth grinding and sleep apnea a problem in our sleeping patterns?
Yes. When you grind your teeth, it basically tells you that you are having difficulty in breathing through your mouth. So the reflexes would be that the teeth will start grinding with each other, and you are not breathing from your nose, you're trying to struggle to breathe from your mouth, you tend to grind your teeth. And sleep apnea is definitely a problem in our sleep patterns, because sleep apnea will bring you from deep sleep to shallow sleep, and that episode may occur so many times over the period of your night sleep, between 6 to 7 hours, 6 to 8 hours of sleep, and you are brought into shallow sleep throughout the night, you are not getting sleep.
All right, thank you, Doctor, for the answer just now. We have more questions coming. So next question is from Didi. How to prevent the open mouth during sleep? Any tool aids that can help to prevent open mouth during sleep? So maybe you can tie your jaws.
Now, in order to treat this, there are devices that are being sold in the market, which basically will try to shut your mouth while you sleep. But it is not easy. It is not that helpful. Many a times the compliance could be poor. So as I suggested, you need to see your ENT doctor to have a check into your nose to see why your nose is not functioning and why are you not breathing through your nose that makes your mouth open. I think that needs to be addressed, and after that you will be referred to the dentist, and there are other ways of solving this problem. Just using mere apparatus is not going to help you, so you need to be tested, examined if you are a mouth breather during your sleep.
Okay, guys, that's the most important key takeaway. Don't simply use any tools to help you shut your mouth during night. So always remember, if you feel that you have this problem, always go to the doctor and they will advise you so. So our next question coming from Aileen. Did scientists ever found what had caused the narrowing of the oral or nasal cavity we have now? Is there any factors? And will the narrowing of the oral or nasal cavity continue in future generations?
We human beings have evolved from what we used to be. If you look at pictures of prehistoric men and women, of course, our entire structure and our habitat was totally different. You know that we were not meant to stand on our 2 feet. We have 4 limbs, and we are meant to be like monkeys. No, we are not monkeys, but we were supposed to have evolved from primates. And because our structure of standing upright, and we have now got ourselves into a situation, the entire skull structure narrowed by evolution. Can we do something about it? It is difficult, unless you would want to go back on your 4 limbs. That's not going to happen. Now, the important thing how we can avoid it is when we are small, there are many other factors from childbirth, bottle feeding versus breastfeeding, and adenoids, infections when you are young. These are the factors that you can actually avoid and treat when you are young. And that will actually help us in our total facial structure if you start young. Nothing is lost. Even at this stage, if you would want to do some remedial action, it can be done. See your ENT, see your dentist, they will be able to help you.
Yes, again, the message is see your ENT and see your doctors, okay? So we still have more questions coming. So if you guys still have more questions, don't forget to post it in the chat box for WebEx participants and also for Facebook and also Star YouTube. So next question from Masni, is there any effects if we do nasal cleansing, which is using water mixed with non-iodized salt regularly?
It is a good practice to wash your nose using water alone, saline water, or even with a non-iodized salt regularly. But we recommend not to use it too often in a day. Maybe once a day would suffice. It cleans up carbon particles. It cleans up particles that probably have got chemical content from our environment. So it doesn't really help you in breathing through your nose just because you have washed it well. There are a lot of other factors, as I mentioned. Structures within your nose would be actually obstructing your nasal passage. So just cleaning with water may give you some benefit, but it may not be a total solution for it.
All right. So obviously this is a very interesting topics. It's about sleep, everyone's favorite activity. So we have a lot of questions. So next one is from Samson. How do we train to breathe through our nose over our mouth?
It is all in your mind. We have been trained from young. As I gave you an example, when you were a baby, or if you have babies, they can suck on a bottle or on a breast milk. You realize that they can continuously take milk without stopping to breathe through their nose. So we were programmed to breathe through our nose even when we were infants. But over a period of time, because the nose wasn't functioning well, the brain has now directed the mouth to do the job. It is not easy to train. I've done a lot of surgeries on patients there whereby I've opened up their nose, and clinically when I look into their nose, the nose is good airway, but yet they still breathe from the mouth. There are a lot of training. They have a few therapies that the doctors can advise you. These therapies will kind of train you to breathe through your nose, then your mouth, and after some time, you get yourself accustomed that the nose is meant to breathe. So there are therapies that will actually help you to reprogram your mind that nose is meant for breathing. It is not simple, but it will take time for you to get accustomed to those therapies.
All right, moving on to our next question from Rickman. How do you sleep better while combating asthma? Does sleeping position or room temperature plays a role?
Well, to sleep better while you're having asthma is going to be tough. Now you have two conditions here. You may have an obstructed nose. Many a times there's allergic rhinitis that goes by with asthma. You have two in one. In order to sleep well, you need to, of course, your asthma has to be under control. If you are wheezing in your lungs and you have secretions and inflammation within your lungs, then definitely you're not going to get a good sleep pattern throughout the night. So get your asthma sorted out. Make sure your medication is optimized for asthma. You will sleep well. Sleeping position and room temperature, well, we normally would recommend patients to sleep on their sides more than sleeping on their back, because there is a tendency of the tongue falling backwards and obstructing. But having said that, this is not something that is easy to do. And room temperature is very individual. There are some who would love the temperature to be 16 degrees or even lower, and they cannot sleep if the temperature is not low enough for them. And there are some who would really want to sweat when they sleep. They would rather switch off the air condition and still sleep under a blanket. So temperature should be comfortable, and room temperature is very individualized.
All right, let's move on to the next one by Lily. Is sleep apnea curable, or the patient has to be on his or her oxygen machine lifelong? What do you think, doctor, about this?
Well, sleep apnea is curable if it's done correctly. As I mentioned to you just now, if it's going to be on a CPAP machine, the oxygen machine, which what we would say is CPAP. Oxygen machine is a little bit different. Oxygen machine is usually meant for patients who are very ill in the hospital. CPAP is a machine that pumps normal room air into the lungs. Now, CPAP will not cure your sleep apnea. But what I had mentioned to you just now, looking into the nose, looking at the obstruction within your nose, clearing and making you to breathe through the nose, and also into your dental architecture, that has got more, I would say, potential benefits, and you get closer to curable. And we have some patients who have done very well when they had gone through these procedures, and their sleep apnea, I would say, almost close to curable, or probably they are symptom-free as far as sleep apnea is concerned.
Alright, we have 2 more questions from the audience. So, yeah, also from Lily. Is sinus a start of an issue to your breathing issue, which leads to unhealthy sleep?
Not necessarily true. There are lots of patients who do not have sinusitis, but they still have unhealthy sleep. Sinusitis could be part of the entire game plan of having an unhealthy sleep. Even you may cure your sinusitis, treat your sinusitis, patients may still have unhealthy sleep. So sinusitis is something that you need to treat in order to have a good nasal breathing to make your nose function well, but that may not mean that it's going to give you good outcomes as far as your sleep is concerned. So for that reason, there are a lot more than just treating the sinus. You also need to look at other aspects, as I mentioned to you earlier, your dental architecture.
Alright, we have come to the final question from RJ. Is regular use of melatonin safe?
In my opinion, melatonin is not something that you need to use regularly. The most important habit would be to get back into your normal sleep rhythm. Melatonin is usually used if you're a frequent traveler and you have difficulty in getting back into your normal sleep cycle. I would not recommend that melatonin needs to be used in a regular fashion, and it is best to do with your natural way of getting into sleep. There are a lot of ways of regulating your sleep pattern, as I mentioned to you earlier. Fix timing of sleeping, and do not eat too much at a particular time. And there are a lot of things that in the modern generation that we do, watching television, looking at iPads, looking at your computers before you sleep. These are the things that actually causes your natural melatonin to go out of normal control. So my advice is regular use may not be so good.
Alright, thank you so much, doctors, for answering all those questions. So the biggest key takeaway here is we always have to practice good lifestyle, as well as to always seek doctors if you are facing any problems. So doctor, before we end this session, do you have any final words for our audience?
I think the important thing is today in our difficult lifestyles that we have, and furthermore we have the normal norm, many a times we forget that we need to look out at our breathing pattern. Breathing pattern is usually kind of neglected. As long as you can breathe, you feel good, you walk around happily, but not realizing that these simple things like breathing through the nose, that you have not realized that you are neglecting it. And there are a lot of benefits of breathing through your nose. And when you start breathing through your nose, you find your total longevity and your quality of life will improve tremendously. So my advice is, start thinking, am I breathing from my nose or am I breathing from my mouth? You can try it out on yourself today.
Alright, that's a wrap for Dr. Koji's session. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us here today. So guys, we'll be right back with a panel discussion. So don't go anywhere, don't sleep yet, okay? And see you guys right back. Thank you. Stay tuned. Thank you once again, Dr. Kuljit, for the sharing just now. It was a great honor to have you today. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to our first panel discussion. At this panel, we have with us 3 seasoned HR, people, and culture leaders. Entitled Pursuit of Work-Life Optimization, they will discuss how to develop successful initiative by redesigning work mechanics in the organization in order to improve employee well-being while boosting productivity. Our first guest panelist is the head of People and Culture at Mind Valley, Martha Condrin, brought the global movement of Disrupt HR to Kuala Lumpur. She's committed to make the world a happier place to work by building authentic and heart-centered organizations with strong cultures. Our second guest panelist is a transformative HR leader with more than 16 years of experience across diverse geographies in Procter & Gamble and Philip Morris International. Chinmay Sharma, who is the Director of People and Culture, plays an integral role to engage and inspire people across the organization in Philip Morris's bold vision of designing a smoke-free future that requires a large-scale culture transformation. Our third guest panelist is currently the Chief People and Culture Officer at Pemodalan Nasional Berhad, driving organizational transformation in the human capital space. Norlida Azmi has over 25 years of experience in client and risk management, strategy, and human capital management within international and regional financial institutions and corporations. Her 18-year international stint included Singapore, London, Saudi, Qatar, and UAE. Last but not least, our panel moderator. He is Dr. Azlan, Perkeso's Head of Prevention, Medical and Rehab, who was also our program's keynote speaker who presented earlier this morning. So are you guys super excited with this panel lineup as I am? They are already here in the room and I'm very looking forward for the discussion. This is definitely something that you do not want to miss. So before I hand over to Dr. Azlan, just a gentle reminder that if you have any question for our panel, please feel free to type it in the chat box. Alright, I think our panel is getting ready. We will be back in just a short while, so please stay tuned.
Thank you again, June, for that kind introduction. Welcome everyone to the forum this afternoon. And ladies and gentlemen who are watching on our online forum. Now, ladies and gentlemen, all of you here, today actually is a historical day for me, and I think many of you have not experienced this before. That is to have a forum moderated by a doctor, but panels are all human resource experts. Now, this is the first time for me. I'm not sure whether any of you have experienced this before, because most of the time, if I moderate a session, usually there are doctors who are panels. So this is how I think how the world is actually changing after what we are seeing, of course, with the pandemic, and also with the challenge that we are seeing at the workplace in terms of managing well-being of the workers and also actually managing the businesses. So somehow the medical persons and the HR persons have to meet somewhere, and I'm glad that you are meeting here in this forum today. So ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do this in 2 rounds. I've actually prepared the first round questions to all our 3 panels, and then later we shall also open up to questions from the audiences as well. Now, I'm also am very glad because this forum actually is going to follow through the presentation this morning that I gave about the effect of health on the employees and also how workplace plays their role. And I think it is very important that we hear from the organization, the business managers, on how actually can we merge this getting business running, as well as getting health and well-being of the employees being catered to as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have panels from Philip Morris. We also have panels from Pemodaran National, as well as Martha, who will talk to us on different different aspects of managing employees and also health and their well-being. So I'm not going to follow the number of panel assigned by June. I'm going to just throw out my question. And I think the first question that I wanted to ask is to Nolida. And this is what I've always been asked to me by many people. And also, I can also say in the beginning when I started my career looking into health and well-being and employees, and the question that we always have to answer is this: if you want people to give more productivity, then people have to work harder, longer, and therefore their health and well-being are suffering. Is this true? Is this something that we look into businesses? Because do we expect people to work harder, to work more, to the detriment of their health, as long as productivity of the business is certain? And if it's not true, how does Pemodaran National handle this?
Thank you, Dr. Azlan. Thank you, staff, for having us on this program this morning. What is really interesting in that question is the perception of do we have to work harder to increase productivity? I think increasingly organizations says that we have to work smarter. I would like to position this productivity on two levers. One is the organizational maturity, and the other one is the individual capacity and capability. I don't believe that there is any organization today that is not going through some adaptation or transformation, given all the disruption that we have had. And this has begun even before the pandemic set upon us. There was the do leaner processes so that you increase efficiency and productivity. And then there is the IR 4.0 that says, how do we change jobs? I think organizations, when they structure the roles, the current role of changes, they have to see whether this is the right tasks and responsibilities accorded to one person, and what is their capability in that. And from the individual, what is your capability and capacity? In Pemodaran National Berhad, we have a multi-generational workforce. So the needs and the levers are going to change between those in the 20s who are willing to burn candles at both ends, in the 30s perhaps looking at building, balancing career and family, and in the 40s is, do you put your health last when you want to go to the next level? So you need to be very sensitized to this. I'm not saying that organizations are absolved from their responsibility in creating an ecosystem in a work community that is really, really positive, because we all know, it's now known literature, a very good environment brings engagement and drives productivity. And I think this is a good segue into what we do at Pemodaran and some of the learnings and the programs that we want to do. I think physical well-being has been well advanced, where there's a lot of initiatives in let's check your heart rate, your fitness, your steps, and everything else. Nutrition, we know that obesity, for our love of food today, there's increasing awareness on how should we balance it. But mental well-being, I think, needs to be pivoted a little bit more positively. I want to share a little experience I've had. I've just come from a global bank where last year we embraced mental well-being from the global head center all the way to the countries. And it comes about from building awareness. It comes about from going through learning. It comes about from building the narrative that is not insulting, that doesn't make you feel bad when you have a mental stress situation. And I found that very, very strong. And role modeling, where the leaders, the CEOs, share stories about the vulnerabilities, and this makes it more relatable. So the adoption became stronger. Of course, there's going to be a lot of seminars about what does mental well-being does, but the practice. The other key success factor is to understand that to build a holistic system, it takes time. So I believe that management and all the people that are responsible must have the resilience to know that that there are milestones that goes from 3 months, 6 months. So in Pemodalan, we are quite fortunate. We have an in-house clinical and health psychologist already, Dr. Sharifa. So I think that itself speaks about where the organization values the staff well-being. There are already initiatives that are physical, the greatest loser about weights, not in performance. And the other one is, of course, nutrition. What we are doing right now is putting through a comprehensive, a more integrated program on how do we drive engagement and productivity. Some people may know that we are moving into Merdeka 118 in 2 years' time. So we want to influence the ways of working that caters, that brings in all the element of physical, mental, psychological, emotional, but also understanding that the physical aspects of the building has to be healthy, the air, the lighting, the ergonomic chairs, but also the last part is that we are part of a community. We are parents, we are caregivers to elders. So we launched our what we call the PNB flexes during the MCO, which is flex time, flex space, flex stress. Giving the empowerment and the latitude to our people. What makes you work happier? I'm not a jeans person, but I think some of my millennials says, I want to come in a cool outfit, wear non-high heels that won't cost me health considerations later. We want to give the options. And I think as the demographics of your workplace changes, you have to be very cognizant of putting in programs that will address the different segments of your workplace, and then you can have a more holistic and integrated total well-being program, because I think that will really drive productivity, because they will feel that, oh, the organization cares about me and I want to give back as much as they're giving me. That is my philosophy, and I think the organization supports me in that position.
Right. Just before I move on, I'm interested in the part where we talk about mental health, and I think one of the drawbacks that I found in my practice is that the word mental itself is stigmatized. Somebody can have stress, but once you mention you have a mental stress, then it becomes different. What is your take on that? Do you still talk about mental stress or it's just stress? And most of the time when we talk about mental health is when we have a case of a psychiatrically ill person who does something criminal or something like that, and suddenly the talk about mental health increases, but actually it's not that. So how does it take? How does PNB takes into this stigma?
So we're very conscious about this. So at the awareness program, we're running a culture transformation program. Is we're using our ambassadors within the network to shift and pivot it. It is not a mental condition, but it's mental well-being. And this is where in my previous organization, when the leaders share their vulnerabilities, where they said, oh, my wife went through a difficult depression, it impacted them, and then she shared the story, a lot of people then say, oh, I felt it too. And that impacts, because the minute you're distressed from your family or from your working circle, it then impacts how you perform at work. There are levers, and I've just read somewhere today that, there are 4 levers of emotional, physical, intellectual, and financial, of course, is another one. If one of them goes down, it's bound to pull you down. But the converse is also true. If you make somebody feel secure that I can talk about my problem, then everything gets uplifted. So I think we have to focus on the positivity of it to bring about that change. But you're quite right, Doctor. We have to remove the stigmatization of the word mental illness to just mental well-being.
Exactly. Thank you, Norida. I think Norida has just confirmed with me that the workplace environment is very important. If you want to talk about health and well-being, then the managers, the employers must be on board, and that is very important. But then there was a question this morning about having to respond to work demands after hours because of the facility that we have now. So in my answer, I talk about previously we have to answer to emails, and then we created rules that you don't answer emails after work, you wait until the next morning. or you set some time to answer the emails. But now work comes in emails and WhatsApp and Telegram. So somebody actually asked the question this morning, how do you handle that? So this is my question to you, Martha. So we have digitalization, we have a lot of facilities nowadays. I think I am guilty of that as well. During the MCO period, I call for a web meeting. I don't care what time, Saturday and Sundays. I keep on calling my team for a web meeting, simply because I can do it. And I think they are all in front of their computer anyway, not going shopping. So how do we manage this? Does digitalization cause more risk to the health and well-being of workers? That's what I wanted to know. How does Mind Valley tackle this?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you, Doctor. I think it goes both ways, and the answer can be yes and no to this. It's very important to see that, let's say, in the last 3 months, the productivity and the effectiveness of many companies have improved, and the pandemic taught us to completely redefine how we are doing things, and remote work for sure brings a lot more productivity. That is my personal stand, as well as a lot of studies can show you. But also what we can see is that the typical working days has increased by 2-3 hours. That's by default. We work more because we are working from home, and as you said, I can call in the video meeting and the video call whenever I want, though I wouldn't advise doing that to your team for sure. And how do we, as managers, as employers, truly set the boundaries, help to set organizational as well as individual boundaries? And it's very important to talk about this at the workplaces. So we in Mind Valley train our managers to help team members to set boundaries. And we are the workforce that is very digitally driven. We are mostly 90% are millennials. So it wasn't difficult for us to go into the new normal, but it is difficult what you're saying, the digitalization of work, the pros and cons of it. And so the very first thing that when we went into this working mode, we did a lot of sharing, and simply sharing easy tips on how to manage your work day, how to organize your day, how to find balance between different priorities of life. And even with sharing simple tips, like for example, there is already this concept of Zoom fatigue, right? Zoom fatigue is something that we all experience when we have meetings back to back, especially if these are video calls. And it's already proven that our brain has to work twice as harder if we are working online, because we don't have the social cues. We don't have the person sitting to us and to read it right on the spot. We have to process it through video. So this makes our brain and mind work twice and 3 times harder compared to if we were in the office environment. So knowing this, how will you organize your day? How will you stay productive and achieve your results and support your organization? So simple tip was don't have all meetings in video, like it's not required. Focus on just an audio call, or don't schedule meetings back to back. Or some departments were also organizing, okay, this is our deep work time the whole day. We don't do any meetings, we just want to focus on getting things done instead of meeting or creativity or brainstorming. So we would allow company to self-organize in the way to see what's the dynamic of the team, what's the dynamic of the employees. I also read recently that overall the digital work truly impacts our decision making, and unfortunately not in a good way. So there was a study of this court members who, when they would have to make a decision online or over the video, they would be less understanding and less compassionate, unfortunately. So understanding the cons of this is very important for us as leaders. And now, as we are entering more relaxed MCO and slowly coming back to the office, it's also very important to ask your team members what work preferences they have. And in fact, we did the survey, and only 20% of the team wants to be back in the office, to work from the office. The rest still prefer to work from home or remotely from anywhere. So we were designing our workplace in a way, okay, if we have only 20% of the workforce, how we will run this company, how we will communicate, will we still need the physical office space? So these were our challenges that came in, and I'm very grateful because our organization truly sees the person as the whole, and personal growth and transformation is at the core of what we do as a business and as well to our employees. So we take it very seriously, and we listen to employees a lot, and we would combine the business needs but also have employees' needs at the first. So that's why we took a decision that we will not ask everyone to go back to the office, only to those who want. And yeah, I'm lucky to say that our business allows us. Not every business can do that. So if your business can do it, I encourage you to ask your team as well, what do they want? So this has been our challenge, and in this time, what I understood for myself and for my team, it's very important to listen. It's very important to really walk the talk about the well-being of employees, and especially in these times. And we as workplaces truly need to be more compassionate about that. And that's why I think these forums and overall what you and Doctor are talking about, the well-being of employees, it's so important. It goes beyond more than compassion. It goes about, I believe through this we can grow our businesses if we take care of our employees. And I can say that at Mind Valley we truly take care of that. One of the things is that we have also our coaches and therapists in-house who would talk about these things, who would help to overcome traumas for employees. We have a lot of programs about well-being in terms of diet, physical health, goal setting. So we provide a lot of space as well for our employees to experience the same. And we always say, if you join Mind Valley, you will become the fittest, the healthiest, with the best sleep that you can get. So this is the promise that we have towards our employees as well. One of our employer brand promises.
That's good. Thanks, Martha. I really like Zoom fatigue. I thought Zoom fatigue is when we tried everybody to mute their microphones. But actually, I have to agree because the MCO period gives a lot of experience about meeting through web-based meetings, and there are people who try to do long meetings, and it's very, very tiring trying to sit down and trying to listen to everything that a person speaks on the web, on the seminar. And you are right again, because I do agree that you have to be 3 times more concentration to actually listen to what are being spoken of. But I'm interested to know just a little bit more when you talk about your training your managers to do the limitation, basically trying to answer the question I had earlier about people having to answer work questions after work hours. How does the Mind Valley promote that, especially among, I think in organizations that I've seen, usually the top management understands, the workers want it, but the middle management still do it. So how do you handle these groups, really?
In our case, it really needs to start with the top management, with the senior managers. And if we have an agreement as a team, as a department, that we are allowed not to reply to work email or work message on WhatsApp after 6 or 7, we all agree about that and we don't reply. So it all starts with the leaders having an agreement, because if they won't, then it will be very hard for you to make this change as HR person, for example, in my case. So it also goes hand in hand what type of culture do you cultivate. And it's very easy to slip through this if the times are stressful. So all of a sudden, the whole organization starts working hard, non-stop, working hours increasing, right? But then leaders' responsibility is, okay, what type of culture do we want to cultivate? What is our stand about the well-being of our employees? And do we agree that we need to teach employees and lead an example of setting boundaries? If this is the type of culture that you have, then it will be easy. If you want to build it, then you have to find champions. But if in truth your culture doesn't support it, no matter what you say, have boundaries, do this, do that, if the culture is not about that, it will be impossible to do.
So I think I can conclude just by saying that my question was not exactly right. So digitalization does not cause the detriment of health and well-being of the workers, but you can actually control it. It's a tool of working, and like any other tool, it can be managed. Really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have to move on to Chinmay now. Chinmay, I've been in this field for more than 20 years, I can tell you that. And for the past 20 years, we keep on talking about mental health. I've been, before I joined Perkeso, I was a researcher, and we researched stress among police, among teachers, among managers. They're all stressed. Right? I can conclude with that, really. So we've been talking about stress, we've been talking about mental health for a long time. And now, in year 2020, we are still talking about stress. Just last month, we had a session such as this, and this was an international event, and we were asked to talk about caring prevention. And I searched for what does caring prevention means. I cannot find what is caring prevention. So in the end, during the discussion with the host, they are talking about prevention that looks into well-being, including mental well-being. So for years and years and years, we are talking about mental well-being among employees everywhere. But we are still talking about it. What are we missing, really? Why are we still talking about it? This is a difficult question. For me, it's difficult. How come we have not handled this for more than 2 decades already?
Thank you, Dr. Azlan and Star. It is indeed a difficult question, and I'm not sure I can give a perfect answer to it. But I would like to reflect on the evolution of work and the lives of workforce, so to say. Okay, in the last 2 to 3 decades, before we really dissect or we come to a conclusion on how this problem should be addressed. Now, as far as I remember, when I was growing up, I never heard my parents talking about mental health issues or stress issues, and those days they were working 6 days a week. Okay, so it was different. But I guess those days for them, switching off from work was not very difficult. And that kind of gives an indication how the work lives were. Now, if you look at the internet era, which started somewhere around mid-90s, that's when things started changing. So one data point that I will give to you is before the internet era, if you look at the list of, let's say, Fortune 500 companies, and you look at the list today, 50% of the companies don't exist today. So essentially, when the technology came, the pace of change became much, much faster. And this whole push on productivity, efficiency, suddenly became, the in thing. This whole talk around doing more with less came into being. And it was a question of basically surviving in this extreme competitive world, and technology basically fast-tracked it. So you can see how this whole work thing has evolved in last 20-25 years. Now, if you look at the workforce, what has changed in the last, again, I would say 2 decades or so, if you dissect the lives of the workforce in good old days, and again, I go back, I don't have to go back look at many examples. If I look at, my home and, my parents, because they were also, my dad was in a bank. Those days, your work, your family, your friends, your colleagues, everything was in the same city. Okay, so you had a full social ecosystem around you, and this thing of moving outside of your city or outside of your country to work used to happen, but not very frequently as we see today. Okay, and this advent of globalization, you started seeing workforce becoming much more mobile. Okay, so this whole social ecosystem that they had started changing. And interestingly, with technology, social media kind of tried to fill that space, but unfortunately did not help, because it kind of created, I would say, a peer pressure on people to be maintaining a different identity, leading perfect lives in that world. Essentially, we got into a situation wherein this whole evolution has moved so fast that it created the issues that we talk about, health and wellness at the workplace. Now, if you look at how the corporate world has responded to it, I started working in 2003. Okay, so those days I remember the talk of the town, especially in the corporate world, was work-life balance. Okay, and there was a lot of effort on how can we ensure people maintain balance on work and life. And soon company realized that it was not a concept that they should be chasing, simply because there is no balance. Okay, the reason being, they were trying to do a lot of things, or we were at that point of time trying to do a lot of things, and in the employee opinion survey, nothing was changing in the scores. And the reason was, fundamentally, we were not changing the workload of people. So if you're not addressing the workload of people, you're expecting more from them, you cannot talk about balance, because there is an imbalance, okay, and it's caused by extreme competitive pressures. The discussion then evolved, and it moved to work-life integration. Okay, how can we create an environment or that same ecosystem for people so that their work and lives are integrated? Again, I think it was a concept being followed for a few years, did not work. And you see there was a wave when companies started putting infrastructure in offices like gym, like mother's room, like creches. Some companies, new age companies, technology companies went a step further. They started creating sauna and spa and everything. But at the end of the day, you still needed that social ecosystem, right? You will not spend your 24 hours in the office. So this whole concept of work-life integration pursued did not move the needle, I would say, to a large extent. And today, I would say, or maybe in the last 5 years or so, this topic, the way the conference is designed, it says work-life optimization. That's what we have been talking about, work-life optimization or effectiveness. So how can you ensure that people are effective at managing both their work as well as life? And if either of it is not managed properly, there is an imbalance, and that imbalance then leads to financial issues, physical well-being, you can say social well-being, eventually leading into mental well-being issues or mental health issues. Now, at least there is a realization that there is this imbalance, and how can we tackle that? Now, if I specifically reflect on my company and in terms of how we have kind of taken on this journey, 4 or 5 years back, when we started on this industry transformation, when we started moving as a conventional tobacco company towards smoke-free alternatives, it required a big transformation, not just in terms of our products, but also in terms of our people practices, because it always has to start from the business that you're trying to do. And 5 or 6 years back, we started introducing things like flexi working, okay, flexi hours. In some countries, we went to 4.5 working days, and it came to Malaysia also eventually. We started moving into work from home arrangements. Okay, it was always an issue because those days the appreciation of work from home was still not there, and managers were still pretty much focused on this aspect of physical presence, amounts to performance in the workplace. And I would say in the last couple of years, and recently I would say in Malaysia also, we have introduced what we call as employee assistance programs, okay, which is mainly focusing around mental health. Now the challenge that we have on this part is it's easier, it's very easy to just introduce a program. The challenge is always the uptake. And as you said, there is always a stigma attached to this when you talk about mental well-being. The thing is, the first step before we introduce this program is to how to normalize this discussion around mental health. How can we talk about it as any illness that exists in the society, or any illness that exists in our lives? And today, if you ask me, our focus while we have introduced the program is mostly to ensure that there is an enough awareness and comfort factor around talking about these issues openly. And you don't have to wait to extreme issues wherein you wait for some extreme incident to happen. How can you ensure that it's normalized? You find champions to talk about it. You get experts to talk about it. But the first and foremost thing is to create awareness and normalize the discussion around this in the society. That's how I see it. Now it's not a solution in itself, but it's going to be a journey. But the first step is creating awareness and having a very open and honest conversation around it.
Thanks, Jimmy. I really like the fact that you highlighted that it's an evolution, the management of mental health in the workplace. So, from the work-life balance and then work-life until we end up with work-life optimization. I wonder whether over the next 5 years we're going to have a different way to try and tackle this. And I think that really brings about to my question earlier, why are we still talking about it after 20 years? Because it looks like we are still finding an answer. Yeah, and that's very important for everyone to understand, because we are not only what is happening in the businesses, in the corporate world, but we also looking at what is happening in the society as well at the social level, whether the mental illness are being tackled by the Ministry of Health, for example. Organizations such as SOCSO, we've been asked to look into this for many times, compensation-wise as well, which I said, look, we can't compensate for stress, but we can compensate to what happened after the stress, but not for the stress. I can't measure really. But these are a lot of things that's happening, I think, and it's going to evolve even further. Now, let me get back to Nolita. We have a little bit more time. At the moment, I think for all three panels really, I think we must touch on COVID-19. We must touch on what happened during COVID-19, and for us in our organization, we have learned a lot really. For example, when we talk about working from home, that is during the MCO, it's a first experience for my organization to allow people to work from home, and we get many types of response. Some people actually work, some people don't really work. Those are new experience that we learn, and we continue on during this recovery MCO. But I want to know, what are the other things? What are things that you've learned as an organization during the COVID-19? It's a once in a lifetime experience. Hopefully we don't experience it again. 100 years, we get to do it once. So let's see what has been learned in each of the organization. I'll start with you, Marita.
It's a very interesting question. We realize that this is the biggest pilot ever on many fronts. Leadership, agility, and everything else. Whilst a survey doesn't say anything, we participated in a pulse survey that measured what is the leadership direction and clarity during these uncertain times. That was very, very important to our staff. Like, is the business going to continue? Do you care about me? So that was important. The other dimension was, how did the managers or their work system show and executed and delivered their duty of care? Did the managers spend time from the Zoom? How are you? Are you okay? Can I schedule this? Are you putting your kids to school or things like that? So there was enough demonstration. So I think that was very, very important, and also because we do have in-house psychologists, so there was enough of resources either in-house or within the community. So those were the three dimensions that I think we scored very well. What was interesting was that, what is our agility in terms of the digital world? Because we had just given people laptops, and that was easier, you could buy or lease. But what about your data information to make work from home effective when you've not digitized or your digitalization journey has begun? And if you've exposed them to Zoom, we've never really given them a training. So it was an uptick right up. So do you pin this person who's speaking on that? This may seem very simple, but I think increasingly the people managers were also being put on a spot. So we learned the positive things is that the leadership could give clear messages, and our workforce demonstrated agility. So what we're doing now, right now, is how do we leverage up from that we continue to do that duty of care. And where I find the challenge now that we're managing is a hybrid of on-site and remote workers. So how do we build that sense of team spiritness? There's no isolation. So I think this is where we need to navigate closely. And I do think COVID-19, as unfortunate as it is, let's leverage on what we have learned, and that there's a huge amount of care in our organizations like PNB. We have a lot of people who've been there a long time. They take pride in delivering as an internal community. So how do we put the new elements? And I think, Doctor, that was the positive things. And in the negative, it's okay. At least we know what are the pain points. Let's address it.
That's good. Martha, your take on this?
So definitely there were a lot of silver linings, as we call them, in this situation. And if I were to think about key ones, I would highlight two. Number one, even we were extremely well-run and comfortable remote organization before, and overall like very effective business-wise, we still were forced to disrupt a lot. And I think a lot of businesses, in order to survive, you had to disrupt yourself in many senses. Not only, I'm not talking about HR in general, but business, how you run, how you communicate, what you do, the pivot all of a sudden that you need to have as a business. And I'm very proud to say that because of us being very sensitive to the situation and monitoring, listening, we were able to pivot literally every day. That's the type of model we are in, business model, I mean. So we had to navigate every day, and this meant even changing our yearly objectives, like our strategy, our vision as well, pivoting to that. For example, we have a business events side of business, and we run like 1,000 people event every year in somewhere in the world, and we were very proud of it. And all of a sudden we couldn't do it anymore. So how do we change it? It's a lot about the mindset disruption, the business disruption. That was the number one for us. And number two was leadership model. I think the leaders, how they had to lead through this time was very different. Let's say you cannot motivate anymore, I believe, in this time. You have to be very vulnerable and honest, and upbeat messages will not work. You need to be honest and say, hey, I might not know the answer right now. I'll find it tomorrow, or the situation will change tomorrow. Let's not hang out to the plans or to the decisions just because we made it today. Tomorrow things may change, and leaders need to be very good at admitting that with their teams and to themselves. So the leadership model, as I said, no upbeat messages, but open communication, being very compassionate and listening to your people and knowing what's happening to them, not only at work, but outside, how they are. We have a lot of team members who don't have families, and their families might be somewhere far away. And leaders need to be attuned to this and understand that my team member might really feel isolated and lonely. How do I support them? So two things for us, like disruption across all levels and leadership model as it was before.
Thank you, Martha. Chinmay, your turn.
I would quickly highlight, amongst many, the biggest one that comes for us is also leadership. I think the fact that for these 3 months where you had different lockdowns or MCOs across the world, 70% of our workforce was sitting at home, and still there was no big major productivity loss. And the fact that leaders went through this experience firsthand, it kind of changed a lot of paradigms. This whole concept of the skepticism that existed around work from home went away. And the whole sense of empathy was much higher, because everyone, doesn't matter what level you are, you were sitting locked in a home and having the same challenges as everyone else. And that has, I think, created a paradigm shift in terms of now how the company is looking at the future of work. We call it smart work. And essentially, we are moving from working from office to working from home now to working from anywhere. And that's a big shift, I think, which COVID has brought, and we'll see how it evolves, but it's going to be interesting, exciting, and challenging times for, I think, all the HR professionals.
Thank you, Jamie. I think two themes came up. One is leadership. Everybody talks about the management, how management responds. And I think surprisingly, we also realized the agility of our workforce in handling these issues. I hope, I think we are all optimistic that once recovery ends and life backs to normal, probably work life is not as normal as before. Yes. Yeah. So that's very interesting. So we are glad that we are here during pandemic and do not get the COVID-19. All right. Okay, let's open up to the questions. Here is a question. Some people do not open up to their family, friends, and colleagues, and then they implode one day. So how can we identify people with issues at work but do not voice out and then break down out of nowhere? So I would like to address to Chinmay this question, because you spoke about EAP just now.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the facility that we now are providing to our employees, wherein they have someone that they can talk to. And I think the biggest thing is we don't have to say that you only have to talk to someone when you are really landing into a big issue. It can be anything. It can be a regular work-related issue with your colleague, with your manager, with your subordinate. And if that experience is not good enough, find someone to talk to. As I said, the whole social ecosystem around us is today extremely broken. And I think this whole MCO has also taught us not to take our social ecosystem for granted, not to take our friends, family, colleagues for granted, because we really miss the social interaction during this part. So if you don't have anyone that you can find, that you can talk to, and if your company is providing an employee assistance program, make use of it. That's what I would say.
Right. If the company has got a psychologist on board, then that's like Mind Valley as well as PNB, and that is already done. But what about companies that does not have an on-board psychologist? How does managers or the employers address the questions now? Nolita.
I just, when I was with that global bank, we did not have an in-house psychologist. So what was very important, the education that they subjected all of us to, was how do your colleagues and your managers pick up the cues? Then they say, and it's just not one conversation that's going to draw them out or help them resolve. They also say, how many times should you be clued in? Some of these things you think you take for granted, doctor, but it's not. Sometimes you're in a hurry to go and do something. You really have to give your colleagues the gift of your presence. I'm here to listen to you. Try not to look at your phone and all that. And these are things that we take for granted. But I think, doctor, we need to have our own working system to pick up the cues.
So managers need to learn how to pick up the cues?
Yes, and colleagues?
Yes, and colleagues have to learn to pick up the cues from the managers.
Yes.
Yes.
Two ways, doctor.
Yes,
You're
yeah.
absolutely right.
Okay, our next question is from Harry, and I think, Martha, this is for you, really. Is it possible for companies to make it illegal to contact staff after office hours?
Well, I think in Malaysia context, it won't be possible, but if you were somewhere in Europe, probably yes. Right? And I think in France, it's already part of employment law that after working hours, you cannot message and email. So France is already spearheading that. But I would encourage people to have a conversation, to and to speak about it. To sometimes our leaders, managers, CEOs, they might not even realize that this might cause stress, right? When I receive this message, I want to reply immediately, but maybe our CEO doesn't even expect immediate reply, right? So having this as a part of conversation and asking maybe your manager, how should I go about it? How should I build my working day? That could help.
Thank you, Martha. So Harry, France is a good place to move if you're talking about that. But I think the gist is about being understanding between the managers as well as work colleagues. After work, you might not you might actually send the question, but don't expect the answer immediately, isn't it? So that's a very important thing. But yeah, here's another one. I think this one I'm going to address to Chinmay because it touched on work-life balance here. So would shortening the daily 8 work hours to maybe 6 hours a day contribute to a more balanced work life? Maybe Malaysia should consider this in the near future.
It's an interesting question. See, if you look at all the white-collar jobs, I think this concept of work hours doesn't exist because technology has blurred the line between work and life, and it's now actually 24/7 if you look at it this way. But if you are in a manufacturing job on the shop floor, then it's a difficult one because then you are basically you address one issue, then you land into productivity issues, and then you will struggle to attract investment in Malaysia and so on and so forth. I think the most important part is instead of focusing on work-life balance in terms of hours, is we need to ensure that we are effective. We have some priorities for our work and for our life, and we are effective at managing those priorities. And sometimes having more hours may not be the only solution.
Right. Thank you. Okay. There goes another one. Next question is from Karthik. What kind of popular wellness offerings are practiced by Ms. Nolida and Ms. Marta in their organizations? Thank you. So yeah, you can start, Marta.
For us, we have a mental well-being programs. So we have in-house coaches and therapists who would support the well-being of the employees at any time. You can have a conversation, you can coach, you can get coaching. We also have programs where we all, it's called 10X, it's a physical health and wellness program where you are trained a short interval training and that helps to build the muscle strength and endurance. So we have a trainer who would train the team in-house on that. We do a lot of community work in terms of employees. So employees would team up and do a diet for 90 days. They would have a special food diet together, and they would keep each other accountable. So we encourage a lot of accountability among employees. That helps. So it's not top-down or because organization said, but it's a circle of support. So these are the biggest ones. We do have others, and I can go maybe some other times.
All right, maybe we move to PNP.
So the programs are very similar in terms of doing the physical and the counselor I mentioned, but I think there's an angle that's very important to us is financial well-being that contributes a lot to stress. So as an investment organization, we do provide that financial well-being counseling because if you think about the life cycle, start planning for your retirement when you're a millennial rather than wait. So there's a lot of stress that comes from your financial well-being that I think it's almost in the Maslow needs, very basic. I need to know that I have financial viability going forward. So I think that's very key, complementing the other wellness programs.
All right. Shall we take another one? Okay. So this is a question from Masni. What are the activities that we can have if to embrace mental well-being of the staff? Question: hire a counselor. All right. So I'm gonna have Chinmay, you start first, and then maybe either Manta or Nolida, because Nolida has already answered about the counselor, so maybe Manta can take the second one.
I mean, hiring a counselor is probably just one of the solutions. But the thing is, you have your colleagues sometimes that you trust, your friends. The most important thing is that you have someone that you can share as to what you're going through. If you go through any unpleasant experience at work, do you have someone that you can talk to, whether it's your HR, whether it's your manager, whether it's your colleague? And if none of these people can help you or you trust, then going to a counselor is not an issue. Because asking for help when you really need it is important versus, getting caught into the cycle of, stress building up and eventually having a major imbalance in your work and your lives.
Your comments, Martha?
I would say that a part of having the programs that we mentioned, it's very important that companies also make a conscious stand that they will support the well-being and personal growth of employees. That's the very first step. And again, we will come back to leaders and managers. If as a part of leadership way, you put one of the principles is to deeply care for your team, to lead with love, compassion, and empathy. If your leaders will embody that, I think this will help a lot for team members to feel, and maybe you will not end up hiring a counselor because the manager will have this trustful relationship in the team and between the manager. So this can be a way out too.
Right. So hiring a counselor is not the only answer. It's one of the answer. Okay. I'm going to take two more questions. The next one is from Sharifa, and I think Nolida is the best person to answer this. So what is your advice for big organizations? How do we reach down to a big workforce and make the management walk the talk?
Doctor, this is a very opportune question because at this juncture, PNB is looking at integrating all these initiatives into a strategic plan. It can never be seen like, oh, in the month of April, I do this activity and then it dies off and then you come off end of the year. I think events don't make for adopting and embracing your commitment and organization's commitment to the well-being of the staff. And that's why we have this program that we're going to be launched next month. Is a total well-being that encompasses 8 elements. And like I said, when we go into Merdeka 118, we want to make sure that the physical, mental, psychological, environmental, and community well-being is taken care of. And how do you make leaders adopt it? You can't make leaders to do it. The leaders have to be convinced. You can't force something that's not natural to them, but I'd like to believe that you bring leaders and people into the organization that have the same values that you're looking for. So we are quite fortunate in PNB in that we have that strong commitment from the leaders, and I think you also need to work top down and bottoms up. So that's why we're using your ambassadors within the system, and for us we'll use our culture ambassadors to reach all the various pockets, to address people that are located beyond a home office in KL, to reach people from different generations or type of works, because we do have some knowledge workers and some non-knowledge workers. Their needs and their stresses are very different.
Right. So even with that commitment, the planning must be solid, really,
Yes.
and long term.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to take the last question, and for this one, I would like all panel to give a short answer because it's a very interesting question. And this question is about people who are working from home. So how do you change the mindset of employers that we are trustworthy, and I assume we means we workers are trustworthy, and are producing our work even when we are working from home, and stop micromanaging the employees as it will result in unnecessary stress. So we allow them to work from home, but then we micromanage them and they become stressed. Might as well work from the office. I'm going to start from the end. Martha, you start first. It's a quick one.
It's already happening. So we are working remotely, right? So it's a lot about the employers and the managers finding the balance of trusting employees no matter what, and creating systems where you can see the results, where you measure effectiveness not by how many hours the employee works, but by the output, the value, the commitment.
Thank you, Nolida.
Really putting to test when you say professional trust. It's a two-way trust of employee to employer and employer to employee, and measure really from the outcomes and be realistic on the expectations. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Micromanaging is going to cause stress beyond repair, I think.
Right. Regardless whether at home or at the office.
Absolutely, Doctor.
Chinmay.
I think this was always an issue, and to Marta's point, this has already started happening because of the COVID. And now I think managers have data for last 3 or 4 months that they can rely on, that how the organization performed when it was not physically present in the office. So it has, I think, impacted the mindset in a big way. Now, whether it is sustainable, we have to see. And I hope we don't have to wait for the second wave of COVID.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I think
Thank you.
it is very useful. I've learned a lot. I'm really glad to be here, sitting with these 3 panels here, because I'm not sure about everyone out there, but I do have learned a lot about about all these questions that we've asked and how organizations are managing mental well-being of their workers at the workplace and now at home as well. So like what Chinmay said, finally, let's not wait for the second wave or the second pandemic to learn more. We've learned a lot, so it's time to put all this learning into practice. So let me hand over back to June. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a very good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you have enjoyed the panel discussion as much as we did. Thank you very much for your question as well. And thank you once again to Dr. Azlan, Nolida, Chinmay, and Martha for such a great and insightful discussion. It is most definitely a great honor to have all of you guys here. So ladies and gentlemen, we are just getting started. We have more exciting sessions in our program tomorrow. As what I have shared earlier, Work Excel Forum will cover some of the pressing topics surrounding physical, lifestyle and social, and most importantly nowadays, mental and emotional wellness. As you can see on your screen now, tomorrow we will dive slightly deeper into these three subject areas. There will be 2 sessions of about 2 hours each, one in the morning and another one in the afternoon. And we have another great lineup of wellness and health gurus who will be sharing with us what it takes in the pursuit of work-life optimization in the 21st century. Do also check out what our sponsor, Dr. On Call, has to share on the sustainable employee healthcare benefits through digital health. There will be another panel discussion that will discuss the benefits and limitations of online and offline doctors. To learn more about the forum program and profile of our speakers, you may scan the QR code on top right of your screen, or you can visit bit.ly/WXH agenda. I repeat, that is bit.ly/WXH agenda. Well, are you as excited for tomorrow as I am? If you have not signed up for tomorrow's session, you may scan the QR code that is on your screen, or go to bit.ly/workxhealth, or email to us at events@thestar.com.my. It is not too late to sign up. Please also share this with your colleagues, families, and friends. So before you continue with the rest of the day, please help us in completing a short survey of today's session. As you exit this webinar, there will be an auto pop-up of the questionnaire. Your feedback means a lot to us as we continue in providing great experience for you at our upcoming events. I'm signing out now, but this page will remain live in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you, and see you guys again tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. Bye-bye.